Hello, good evening. Welcome along to the JACKOCAR Cup Series. It is Season 10, Round 15, here for the famous Canadian Grand Prix, which is, of course, round 3 out of 3 for our round of 10 here in the playoffs. Very exciting times. We've seen a very dramatic race last week in Monza. We're not going to spoil it for the first 2 minutes because we are going to be glazing all over it for qualifying, quite frankly. If you haven't watched it, just quickly go and watch the last lap, you'll figure out who won. I'm your commentator, Owen White. With me, I have got Mr. JACKOCAR himself, Jack Ricketts. And despite giving you a ready up call, no one's readying up.
Yes, hello, good evening everybody. Seeing as they've not readied up, it gives us more time to chat utter rubbish, Owen. And the first thing I will kick us off with is this is the first time where we have commentated together and I have not been upstairs. I'm coming to you live from the lounge at JACKOCAR HQ. So if you experience an echo, it's because the place is being recarpeted. If it's that bad as well, well, I won't do anything, you'll just have to deal with it. But looking forward to this one, first elimination race of the season.
I can't say I noticed any echoing, so I think we'll probably be fine. But yes, first elimination race. For those of you who don't know how this works, we have our top 10 drivers are in the playoffs, the bottom 10 are in the chase. The chase is basically just a mini championship. The person who's the top of those standings after the round of 6 gets a spot in the championship 5. In the playoffs, it's the top 4 after the round of 6 who make up that championship 5, put them together. At the moment, we've got 10 people left in the playoffs. In the round of 10, hence the name, 2 drivers tonight will be getting kicked out, and they will be the 2 drivers who have the lowest points tally. At the moment, that is Jordan Lane and Leroy Hasselager, and drivers at risk will be Gareth Hall and Ben Harrow, who's not here, is he? So that might cause problems for him.
Yep. Jordan Lane actually is already out of the Dr. Pepper playoffs because of the him telling us earlier he would not be racing, so he inherits a -5. To be fair, oh no, he wouldn't have been out, would he? He would have been racing, so he would have had a chance at points. But he is 7 points off the cut line to Ben Harrott. He is out. Leroy Hasselager -11, but he can make his way in. He has to finish 5th or better. With Ben Harrott not here, he is above the cut line, but he must, absolutely must. Well, sorry, he can't do anything, he's not here. But Ben Harrott, sorry, is +7 with a win, which means 6th place is not good enough for Leroy. He has to be 5th or better.
So we're going to be expecting a pretty special performance then from Leroy Hasselager. He does have it in his locker, and if there's any place where that a sort of big result's going to happen, it could well be here in Canada. I think everyone comes here now, and the first thing you think of is Mike Kelterborn, and we'll see him on track soon. But his famous win here a few seasons ago does it always springs to mind as a potential for a surprise result. We were talking to Catboy last night. He reckons he's the favourite tonight to take a 4th win of the season. The only driver, in fact, he has 3, let alone 4, so he's looking to really extend the winning gap out there. But we'll worry about him later on as we do see the first car coming out of the pits. It is Michel Gorry, so he's bottom of the championship, bottom of the chase, which is a bit of a surprise, actually, it has to be said. I mean, he had pace on the last game, in doses, in small doses, but it was definitely there. Just not really worked out for him. He's -41 to chase leader, and this is a speed risky, but obviously no one cares. Sullivan Lewis leads the chase after his win in Monza last week. He won the Kia Series title there last season, and he gets his first Cup Series win in 1,484 days, I think Jacko's number was, which is the longest gap between first and second wins, and that'll never be beaten. And probably won't be beaten for the longest gap between wins in general. I think Pete Knighton and Michael O'Keke could beat that, but they're both looking pretty unlikely to do so. So yeah, it was a quite historic race last week, really.
Absolutely was. Good to see I don't want to say
Oh,
first time
Michel.
winner, but a long time winner win a race.
I don't think that's going to count. It's not.
It's not. Anyway, I'll carry on with Sullivan. Good to see somebody who hasn't won for so long win again, isn't it? And seeing as Michel's done that, let me just clarify on what the post-race tweet meant. I said that it's the first win in 137 races for Mr. Lewis. Now, that's 137 Cup Series races, not races for Sullivan himself, because funnily enough, he's only competed in 129. So the actual winless streak is a number less than 137. I'm not sure what it is, but in terms of our appearances, it was 137 races. So Michel's made an error. We shall move on to Michael O'Keke, if you haven't already, as he begins his lap. Owen Wyatt, take us around Montreal, Canada.
Turn 1, you've really got to send it in there. You can send it in a lot quicker than it always looks like, and I think you'll see that from the faster drivers. Traction out of turn 2 has always been quite difficult. This chicane this year, as Michael gets it all wrong, you can cut it a lot more on the inside. They've sort of trimmed back the grass a bit, and it's a lot easier to take. As we get to the end of the first sector, this is still a nightmare of a chicane. No one likes it, and it's difficult. If you get through it, it's relatively quick. You'll be happy enough. Michael's getting a tow here as we head to the Peak Night and chicane, which he was talking about in JACKOCAR earlier today. If you weren't listening to that, do give it a listen on the JACKOCAR channel, because that chord does come up, and my commentary does as well. As into the hairpin, OKK he basically does hit the apex. It's not really an apex you want to hit too much anyway. You've got to be rotating the car rather than focusing on your V line through there. As onto hot lap mode now, you can see once again he's mucking about with his ERS. That'll be something that we keep an eye on tonight. 3 DRS zones as well. This is the second out of 3, and the third one's coming up now. DRS up to the line for Michael O'Keke. It will go P1. It was valid, and it's the benchmark of a 1 minute 11.571.
And it will stand for at least one more run, as Waze is also invalidated. By the way, record for the Cup Series, 37 drivers have taken part in the league, in the series, that is, this season. Waze actually ranks 3rd of those drivers who are not full-time, getting himself above Khalifa with his last performance when he was with us in Imola. But we'll move on from Waze and we'll move to the man with a 2-second head start. It's Barry Baldwin. I'm sure there was a stat I had ready for Bazza and it escapes me. This is bad. I don't have a stat. I thought he was on 50 races, but it's not. This is his 48th Cup Series, so Cup Series race. Come back to us in 2 weeks' time, and it'll be 50 Cup Series starts for the Welshman as he kicks out the rear of the hairpin and down this long... Is this the back straight, Owen?
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to call it a back straight all evening, aren't we? Got a little bit more ERS at this point than what OKK did as he burns it up into the final chicane. Of course, Wall of Champions, will that make an appearance this evening? Bazza straightens the car up, and over the line he will come then for a 1 minute 13.2. A little bit off the pace, that's for sure. Let's see what Jamie Griffiths can do.
It's got to be said, Bazza got the Peak Night and chicane all wrong, because he broke about 50 metres too late, and he just did not get the corner right. And he, in fairness, he tried to keep it valid, but he had to slow down. That's why he was 1.7 seconds off the pace. Jimmy Griffiths has had no such problems as he comes onto the back straight. I never actually asked him if this is meant to be HRT inspired, but it certainly looks good. And I'm hoping that he can keep these colours for the rest of the season, because it is nice to see something good being done with the limited livery templates on this game. As Jamie Griffiths goes fastest, certainly something you would never have seen in the HRT days, and he promptly blows up turn 1, which is definitely an HRT type thing to do.
Maybe with it being Canada, it could be a Super Aguri thing.
Oh my god! I thought I saw a car spearing off into Narnia. I might not have. Maybe I caught that wrong. Let's look at Yuri Hasselager.
Yep, the Dutchman, the most experienced JACKOCAR driver of all. And this is his 214th start, would you believe? That's Cup and Kia combined, with a lovely tow down the back straight. Gets the final chicane absolutely spot on. Loads of ERS left, and over the line he goes. It's a new benchmark. He's 4 tenths clear of Jamie Griffiths, and that's how you do it. Will anybody match that? I would expect them to. But let's see. Mike Kelterborn, the German, up next. Coming off the back of a season with Middlesbrough in the Jacko Ball Championship. Some good wins, actually, for Mike, it must be said. And,
beat Tony, didn't he?
We're promoting Jacko Ball because I'm sat next to the reigning champion. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. If I'm honest, I've only won the title because Tony ran out of time to play all his games. But that's not relevant. It's his fault for not bothering for the first 3 weeks. Derby County did indeed, as it turned out, slightly dominate. Only lost one game. But yeah, it's good fun. If you've been looking on the JACKOCAR channel, you might well see Luton versus Burnley, which was the actual highlight of the season. Me, Jacko, and Jamie Carragher were commentating on that one. Well worth a watch. As Mike crosses the line, invalid. It would have been only at 11.1. His Canada skills not coming into the play there, unfortunately.
And our most recent JACKOCast member, you've already brought it up this evening, but Pete Knighton goes through the Pete Knighton chicane, but he's already invalidated. So it reminds me a lot of Season 2 when he got it all wrong. He's got it all wrong here in qualifying in Season 10. So work to be done in the race later on this evening. We'll move away from Pete and we'll go to last week's race winner, Sullivan Lewis. He hasn't invalidated. This was actually the man here 8 seasons ago who was behind Pete Knighton when he spun. But because Sullivan was one position too shy, he ended up losing out on a place in the Championship 5 to Camo Babo. There's a name from the past. Who remembers him?
I know, many people will have forgotten he existed. Of course, we could never forget him. We are good at remembering our drivers, and we're also good at remembering that this is another of Sullivan's good tracks. I don't know if he was on pole or it was the front row. It was something like that last season. He's good here. So as he comes on the final corner, our most recent race winner goes to the top. Let's see if he stays there. It wasn't quite in the 1 minute 9s. I would, in fairness, imagine some people will get there. Certainly Jamie Carragher will want to get there. Also known as Ben Shaw, also known as Speed Ben Shaw. This bloke. And we're catching him at the start of his lap, oddly enough, so there's been a bit of sort of crossover again. Maybe there's going to be some tow given from Risky's car.
You know it. And of course, I was wondering where we're getting Jamie Carragher from. Ben Shaw, who is, let's say he is Scouse. He's not quite from the middle of Liverpool, but he turned his accent up to 10, and he sounded like Jamie Carragher. So last night when we were commentating the Burnley-Luton game, he provided some great in-depth analysis from the sidelines. That video, by the way, the entire match is available on Michael O'Keke's YouTube, but JACKOCAR will be putting it on their channel probably tomorrow, actually. But he's getting a lovely tow off of, you don't have teams in JACKOCAR, but your friends are where you find them, off the back of his friend Sullivan Lewis. Into the final chicane comes Ben Shaw, second all-time on the pole list. Where will he go tonight? This has got to be provisional P1, and it is 109.4. There's your statement, my son.
Tidy lap.
The playoff drivers.
That was a very good lap. It's what you expect from Ben Shaw. And following him is the so-called fastest member of Team Speed. He may end up having to be the fastest member out of his house tonight because he's baby due pretty much, well, tomorrow, but that doesn't mean necessarily it will be tomorrow. It could well be tonight. So if you do see Gareth Hall leaving dramatically, that might be why. It could also just be his natural talent. We'll find out as he flies through the final chicane, doesn't hit the wall on the exit. This should be enough to possibly go into P4, and he does get there. P4, P3, but he's actually the 4th fastest member of Team Speed. Disastrous. But yes, if you do notice Gareth leaving, he'll just have to hope he's done enough to get through to the round of 8. He should do, really, with Ben Harrett and Jordan's issues. But still, it's worth pointing out he may not be able to race to his full ability.
Yep, and Leroy's invalidated the man who needs to be P5 today to get 12 points.
That would have been a decent time as well. That would have gone 3rd fastest.
But I joked with Gareth earlier. I said, if the baby does come along, it means I can bring back my favourite line from the Season 8 Championship 5 when Arnaud had "baby on the way" repeated on many occasions through the night of Las Vegas when Ben Shaw ended up taking the title. Nick Egan next in qualifying. He's not invalidated, like many others who have come before him have. Running the purple car, as ever. What more would you expect from this man? Now a race winner in JACKOCAR. He gets the car not giving him a tow. Clearly no friends for Nick Egan on this track. But through the Pete Knighton chicane, as we lovingly refer to it as, and under the Pirelli hoarding, down to the Robert Kubica corner, I should say. and gets this right. No lock-up. Lovely turn in for Nick Egan as he'll now power down the back straight. And this is where a lot of overtaking will happen. Well, hopefully anyway. If we don't get overtaken tonight, Owen, I'm leaving. Canada does normally provide, though. Here he goes then. Corner 1, corner 2, through he goes. Nick Egan up to the line. Will he challenge Ben Shaw? Let's find out. He goes P2. He's front row with Ben Shaw. It's Tony Kirkpatrick next, and there's been a lot of uproar about him racing this evening. Owen Wyatt.
As there always is, the man who's been here, there, everywhere, but he's expected to go to the top here, although perhaps that might be a bit unfair. I don't know how quick he is on this year's game. Maybe he's not as quick as he has been on previous, but people know him for being quick, and he looks pretty quick. This is going to go P1. They'll be into the 1:08, so yeah, that's just miles ahead of everyone else, isn't it, at the moment? But we still have the big hitters to come, so let's see if anyone can get close.
Yep, Corey Dalton first, one of the loudest people this evening once we announced Tony was racing, so I said to him and the others that complained that the best drivers will just get on with it, and this is Corey Dalton getting on with it. How close can he go to Tony Kirkpatrick's time? He's only 7/10 clear of Ben Shaw, and we know Ben is not the fastest here in season 10. Corey, with his one win, has been, you would say, marginally quicker than the season 8 champion. Let's see if he can get himself between the two. Tony P1, Ben Shaw P2, Nick P3, Corey P4. That worked out really well, didn't it?
Not too bad. Let's see how Matt Lester gets to go. This must be the first time he's appeared in the Fast 5 in the Cup Series. Let's see if he can make good use of it as he heads round into the second DRS zone. Well, he's almost got Corey's colours, but Corey's taken his colours off his car, and he's made it look a lot nicer than Corey would as well. The yellow and the pink and a bit of black on there as well. It's very nice design. Big fan. But let's see if it brings him any speed. As he comes up to the line, he's already lost pole. He's already going to be miles behind. That's just the gap, unfortunately, between the fastest and the slower drivers. But still, he comes in the top 10. We've still got only 4 drivers to go, actually. We've had a lot of invalidations tonight, which is odd.
Clearly, when I said the best drivers just get on with it, they are yet to turn up, perhaps. Here is one who you expect to do well. It is Arnaud de Grief. Still sits P3 in all-time Cup Series polls, one behind Ben Shaw. He is going to get a toe off of Corey Dalton, though. This is something that Tony didn't have. And Arnaud is a man that you could say can challenge the likes of Tony Kirkpatrick. Corey moves to the right. Arnaud turns right, turns left, doesn't hit the wall. Power down, DRS open, over the line he comes then. Arnaud de Grief, P2. He's still nowhere near Tony Kirkpatrick, but maybe it gives hope for the likes of Casper, Kieran and Jake, who are up next. First of all, it's Casper.
Casper had a bit of a slide there coming into the middle sector, so that might be holding him back a little bit as he heads into the Pete Knighton chicane, locks up on the way through but keeps it all valid into the grass on the exit. He's given it some. He's left a bit of ERS as well for the back straight. 41.4 in the middle sector. I've got to say that doesn't look very competitive, but he's not had the best hairpin either. I think this is one of I'm sure he'll also admit it himself, maybe a slightly shoddy lap from Casper Klein, but let's see if he can still make it at least into the top, well, second row. He'll be probably aiming for second row with how this is going so far. Sends it into the final chicane. He had to. Just about gets away with it, although he turned in possibly a bit too late into the corner. And he's only gone P6. It is one of his less impressive laps, let's say.
He certainly tried, though. Full marks for commitment. Casper, by the way, 100 Cup Series starts tonight. He said, are you going to do a tweet about it? I was like, no, because you've already hit 100 starts in JACKOCAR. He sits on 102. It makes it 103 tonight with his 3 starts in the Kia Series as well. But here's Kieran Spears, who you told me off camera, Owen, that he says he's in contention for the win tonight. Not sure if I believe that, but he does seem to pull out the bag. And as you also said earlier, more wins than anybody else this season, which is hard to believe. He's had a quiet season, I would say, but 3 wins nonetheless. Then into the final chicane. Once again, power down. And where will he go? Kieran Spears to the line. P3. He's in amongst the big boys. It's where you want to be. It leaves us with 1 to go. It's Jake O'Sullivan. Owen Wyatt.
This needs to be a very big lap for Jake O'Sullivan. I think a lot of people are still going to be sort of having him as their favourite for the Cup Series title this season to make it 3 of the best for him. But let's see. It's a 41-2 middle sector. Big slide on the way into the hairpin. That's not going to do him any favours whatsoever. I think Tony can relax, but his Weber now, Jake can get on to the front row, display it's Arnold, and you know Arnold will have a go into turn one. He's been given a reputation of being a bit dirty in the last few races, so him and Kieran all the way up there, he'll want to be in the mix there, and he sends it a bit like Casper did. That might have been even less successful than Casper's attempt. He's given it some, but I think again it'll cost him. As P7, same place he was in where was it? Brazil. He was at the front of that race in no time, but I do think he'll be disappointed about Jake. And unsurprisingly, it is Tony who is on pole position, which will be just fantastic news for everyone else.
They'll be hating me because I approved that to happen, but like I say, the best will just get their heads down and get on with it. Good effort from Arnold, it must be said. A little less than 4 attempts separates the top 2, and the other thing that you and I like the most, and the viewers at home, the storylines. Let me take you all the way back to Baku, where Arnold and Tony come together. It was Tony who was on the receiving end of an Arnold nudge into the wall. I wonder what happens here when we start off in Canada. Quick rundown then. Tony P1, Arnold second, Kieran third, Ben Shaw fourth, and Nick Egan completes the top 5. They are followed by Corey, Jake Casper, Sullivan Lewis, and Yori Hazelager breaking into the top 10. And the rest, Owen Wyatt, when I like to do lead commentary, we're not going to talk about them. They're rubbish. They're slow. We'll ignore them. It's only the top 10 that are worth mentioning.
Yes, only 15 drivers put a lap on the board there in qualifying, so that was it must be one of our lower numbers for the season, which I suppose it says a lot actually, because some races you have horrendous numbers in the past, and as we arrive onto the grid, it's a very dull evening here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. I did think for a second it was going to start raining, but we have seen rain in recent races. It has become a good sort of feature. Did it rain last week? On the last lap?
Where were we?
In Monza. There was a race
yes,
that it did, didn't it? It just randomly started raining on the last lap. I was going to mention it, but Jacko was in the flow. I was going to say, it looks like it's about to start raining, but no, sure enough it did. It just started raining randomly. It came out of nowhere. But here, if it were to rain, it would be slightly less surprising with how the clouds are sort of looking and how dull the place appears to be. As the drivers, of course, will be seeing the weather forecast and EA and Codemasters' infinite wisdom, we still aren't able to see it as commentators, which is just bizarre, because in real life it would be the other way around. We'd be the ones who know what's going to happen with the weather, and the drivers would just be the ones guessing. But I suppose logic fell out of EA's and Codemasters' vocabulary a long time ago. Once again, I'm doing a lot of rambling. It feels like it takes longer every week for these guys to hurry up and get setups on, doesn't it?
We are getting better at talking, though. I was actually listening back this past week to a handful of earlier streams, shall we say, and the first thing that's notable was your voice has changed dramatically, and I've become more confident in doing it. So, as a team, Owen, I've never used that word before, but as a team, we're very, very good at what we do, and if people don't believe us, they need to watch the Burnley Luton game, because that was as flowing as you could possibly imagine for commentary. First time we've ever done it for FIFA. The formalities are this evening, no jokers, as Owen White has told you, and these stage points come at lap 10 and 26. Away is Ben Harrott, Jordan Lane and Danny Quinn. In we have Matt Lester, Waze Cuba, and of course this man Tony Kirkpatrick starting from pole, his 7th start in the Cup Series, looking for his 2nd win. What can he do? And like I said at the end of qualifying there, don't forget Arnaud de Grief and their history in Baku. It has fireworks waiting to explode.
Really interesting with the tyre choices here, by the way, because we've got 7 starting on the hards, which is more than I would have ever expected. I'll say that much. So is that suggesting possibly rain at the halfway point? They want to have tyres when that happens. I could be just making it up. Most of the rest of the field are on mediums. Only one on the softs is Yori. So, yeah, it's piqued my interest, I'll say that much, as Tony, he pretty much floored it all the way around there. That is, I suppose, the best way of putting heat into your tyres. So much so that Sullivan Lewis only just about caught him by the end of the lap. The rest of the field following a little further behind, and I did see Kieran put that in the wall at the final corner. This might be the most tyre heat anyone has seen in a formation lap this season, so that might make the run to turn 1 a slight bit more exciting as Tony parks himself up on the grid. He had to slow himself right down on the main straight, so he would have lost a little bit of temperature, whereas Arnaud was able to give it some beans down there. Outside line though into turn 1 is difficult. Kieran, if he gets a good start, he may well think about throwing out the inside as the rest of the field slowly but surely get their way onto the grid. And once again, I want to see who's got themselves parked in interesting positions as who on earth was that? Yuri was parking in Pete Knighton's spot, which is always nice.
And Gareth as well.
And Gareth's mucking about it as well. Who's going to be last to park up then? It might well actually be Gareth himself to park up. And we await the lights here. Very short run down towards turn 1. It's not even really a straight either. It's going to be a very interesting run. 5 lights here. It's the round of 10 elimination race. And boogity, let's go racing. It is a decent start from Arnold, as I might have suspected. Surely he's going to be shoved off the road to turn 1 by Tony. He does give a little bit of room, but Arnold's forcing it up the inside. And he's going to take the lead surely on the exit. He'll absolutely throw it up the inside into the chicane, I'm sure of it. But he backs off. That's not the Arnold we've come to know in the last few weeks. It sounds to me like Tony's got away with it. Yuri's made up 3 positions already on those soft compound tires. Ahead of him, Kieran and Jake, or not Jake, that's Casper, side by side. And Casper's going to go round his outside. Yellow flags, don't quite know what's happening. I know MK Bourne's fallen right to the back of the field. Kieran down to 6th place. That's a dreadful start from him from 3rd on the grid, Jacko.
Yeah, you've taken away the one thing I was watching, and it was Kieran's demise off the start, just falling away as you would have seen. Good start for Ben Shaw, being able to maintain P3, and of course Arnaud, like you said, he held it around his outside as long as he could have done, but eventually it was Tony who snuck away. But only a 3/10 lead so far. Arnaud will do everything he can to try and gain the lead off of him and ruin his race, because the win for Arnaud is more important than a win for Tony. Let's see what they can do as they come to the end of lap 1. Tony, playoff point for leading it. Owen Wyatt.
I must say, I was looking at the fight for P11. It was risky up the inside of JACKOCAR. I swear, it was the most incredible dive bomb you'll ever see. And they were banging wheels all the way down the back straight. Risky just by getting ahead there at the end. Gareth was just watching it. He's fallen down positions. But this is going to be fascinating. With DRS enabled for all of the top 6, they are in a train. Yuri, on his soft, he may well be able to get involved in this as well. So, Arnaud, he's got a full tank of ERS. Tony's already used half of his ERS, so you'd very much give the advantage here to the man who's just holding back and waiting for the back straight. Of course, the detection point here is different to many other tracks. As Nick gets past Yuri, that DRS detection point that Arnaud's just gone through, that gives him DRS into the last chicane and into turn 1. Now, Jamie Griffiths has gone off at Pete Knighton's chicane, and he's going to come back on and nearly hit MK Bourne. But watch this. Arnaud's going to come through. He'll take the lead, but then he'll get DRS into turn 1 as well. So now we should look at Ben Shaw and see if he can attack his speed teammate. He doesn't have the best run for the final corner, so I think he'll be okay, Tony. But yeah, that's going to be a slightly different way of ERS working tonight. Arnaud does lead at the end of lap 2, and Tony was just letting him know he was there on the inside of turn 2. He wasn't going to send it, but he would have had him slightly worried a little bit there, Pete Knighton. Yuri's really struggling here, and Jake is getting frustrated. Surely not up the inside into 3 and 4. That's a mad place to go for a move. He does get him in the end, but I tell you what, they must have lost a good 4 or 5 seconds. Yeah, look at that. Jake's 4 seconds off the back of the pack now. And he's been hit by Nick as well. And that's going to give the man in the purple car some front wing damage. I hope it hasn't given Jake diffuser damage, because that really would be a nightmare for his race. But this midfield battle, it's getting really feisty, Jacko.
Sure is. I've joined you on board of them as I'm now watching Sullivan Lewis overtake Yuri, and he's going to try and sort Nick out as Ben Shaw has overtaken, because Tony has had a problem up front. And now he's about to get mugged by Casper Klein, is he? To the outside goes the Finn, and through he goes to the man who they all were scared of coming into this. Has fallen down 4 positions inside of 3 laps. Arnaud leads the way, followed by Ben Shaw, Corey Casper, and then Tony Kirkpatrick.
That has to have been like a loss of traction on the exit of the hairpin then for Tony, because, or maybe he's been given a little love tap from Ben Shaw, because that's a very weird place to just be losing positions like that. It's not even really the hardest corner to get out of. Maybe even he's had a snap under braking on the way in. We saw that happen to Jake, for instance, at the end of qualifying. But whatever was going on there, it's a big moment now for Tony as stuff's happening, is there? Between the Hasselagers, perhaps?
Leroy very, very nearly collected his brother there, who eventually moved out the way for him. OKK unfortunately picking up a penalty just before that as well. But Leroy on his way up to what he needs to be as a P5 finish. He's got a lot of work to do, but he's very much in this race. If this peloton, if you will, can stick together. But OKK looking very fast, it must be said, as Nick and Risky battle away into the hairpin.
The skies are just sort of starting to brighten up here as well, so I'm hoping that means that the threat of rain is disappearing. And now look at this, Ben Shaw, he didn't fancy attacking Ireland in the final chicane. Will he now go for it into turn 1? As they head down towards it. Oh, bit of wheel binding. That was a late move from Arnaud, but it's all fair. Robin's racing, as they say, and that's a big rub from Arnaud, who sends Ben into a half spin. Will Ben hold on to second place, or will Corey stand it up the inside? He will indeed. He's taken second place off the Season 8 champion as MK Bourne gets a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. These pit stops are happening now. Of course, we're all mandatory. We're well past lap 3. Down the inside goes, that was Casper on our Ben. That was a big amount of contact too. Tony might get back involved.
Back into it as well.
Yeah, definitely. This is a bit of a scrappy lap so far for these guys at the front. And, oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine following this closely and not making more mistakes. Let's see how this goes into the chicane and the hairpin, because surely we'll see a move from Kieran. No, he backs off on Tony. Tony, who's been able to save all his ERS back up, but he's in 4th gear. 4th gear coming out of the hairpin. No wonder he's so slow. If he's done that more than once, no wonder that's why he's so slow. We'll keep an eye on that as the race goes on. Casper is indeed through, and he may fancy, helping his teammates out now. It's ERT 123. But Tony's exit out of the hairpin, we will keep an eye on that, because that must be the second time in the race that he's done that. And is that a problem with his wheel? Is that a loss of concentration? It's very bizarre if he's doing it to save tyres. I don't see any reason why you'd want to be in 4th gear coming out of that hairpin, and it's demoted him to 6th place in this race. What a slide! What a save! He hasn't actually. Oh, I thought he had saved it, Ben. What a shame. He has hit the wall. But Tony and...
damage.
There is damage.
Yes. Wing plate damage for Ben Shaw, but Nick Egan's 6 seconds away.
Tony and Kieran lucky to get through by getting involved there, but that's a shame. I really did think that he was going to save that, Ben, but unfortunately he did hit the wall on the left hand side rather than the right hand side. Maybe he overcorrected it a bit. Now look at this, we've got Casper side by side with Corey, and that's into 2nd place. Obviously they'll still get the DRS on Arnaud, who's leading on. The first stage point will be at the end of lap 10, so just keep your eyes on that, because maybe that's when the fight will get a little bit more exciting as Tony moves himself back up into 4th place. And you have to call it a comeback drive. I mean, I don't think he wanted to be here by this stage. We'll see if it can continue. Now, Ben didn't speed into the pits, which is important for him. If he can get this front wing changed out into clear air, maybe he can still make someone up this race. But he will be in... Well, no, he won't be really with the midfield, which is good news, because they're fighting like crazy. So he will have a little chance to make things happen. So don't count him out just yet at this race.
If he makes it work, he should... the lost time with the front wing, he'll come out in front of the Nick Egan and Sullivan Lewis battle. But of course, that still leaves him 5 or 6 seconds away from the back of Kieran. Of course, they all have to make 2 mandatory stops. One of them before lap 26 and one after, or both of them after if they so desire, as Arnaud continues to lead the way. Don't rule out Ben Shaw this one just yet. He has been very, very fast. Casper, by the way, eyeing up a move on Arnaud de Grief. Here he goes, nice and easy. New race leader.
Corey's too far away to get involved with this at the moment. But once again, Arnaud now finds himself in the middle of 2 cars with DRS. Of course, he doesn't have anything, but it seems like the moves into turn 1 are a lot more difficult than they might have appeared. So perhaps the DRS hierarchy won't really change too much in this race compared to previous ones. Speaking of which, Jake has now got a big move happening there from Risky and his contact again. This lot are now 9.5 seconds off the top 5. They must have been fighting either way too hard, or someone in this pack, possibly Jake, has some floor damage, something like that. Because I don't think they're naturally this slow. They shouldn't be naturally this slow.
Jake has made his way to this point, so he's battled against the odds to be there. Unfortunately for him, he is nothing more than just the leader of the peloton, isn't he? It is very much a top 5, and the rest of them split. The only one who could argue against that is Ben Shaw, but he's all the way down in P16. Waze picks up a penalty, and Sullivan will be looking to get past Jake O'Sullivan down the straight, but he's had an awful exit, and it's going to allow Nick Egan to have a sniff with Michael O'Kk P9 and Leroy P10.
Noticed that Arnold held back on Casper, and is he about to prove my no one passes the turn 1 thing wrong? No, he's not. But that'll be... Oh, off goes Riskin. Is he going to collect anyone as he comes back on? Just about misses. And I tell you what, that could have been an airplane crash. But there was a bit of his front wing that went flying out. We're 3 wide as well towards turn 1. Be careful there. As Gareth on his outside has contact again. I tell you what, Risky's hitting everyone, isn't he, today?
Yeah, he sure is.
Oh, hello. Yellow's in sector 1. That is for Wace.
Waze, sorry.
I was worried it was the leaders for a second, but Ben Shaw, look, that's where he is now. He's just overtaking the stricken Wace, who doesn't come back up his inside. He looked like he might for a second, but he's backed off. So, yeah, that's how far behind Ben is, and he's now going to be having to pass people. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on it as he hits the back of Bazet. That's the pace difference on new tyres, in fairness. And he will get through, I would assume. Baz will just let him go. Just about. I tell you what, that was a difficult move, actually. But back at the front, there's a crash and Arnold's into the wall. Now, what's happened there is that people have been trying to come into the pits at the same time, and they've all come together. And Arnold, I don't know who, someone must have been trying to dummy or whatever happened there. Arnold ended up trying to bail out of the pit entry, and he hit the wall. Now, Jake sped into the pit, or no, he's got a drive for speeding under the VSC. Right. So, Casper and Corey and Arnold all went for the pits. I called it late, but I was on board with Arnold. And Arnold ended up trying to bail out, and he's hit the wall hard. That's what we've got the VSC for. But I am staggered that he's not out of the race with that. We go green once more. Tony now leads. But all these pit stops on the VSC, they don't count as safety car stops. They're all mandatory. And Ben Shaw is currently fighting away in P9 now. And that's sort of P4 on track. But with Jake's drive-through penalty, that will become a net P3. Corey picked up a penalty in this as well. Don't know exactly how much he's got. 3 seconds just. But that certainly seems to me like an incident that's shaken the whole race up.
Certainly has, and not for the benefit of entertainment either. I was going to touch on Ben Shaw. Even with the front wing change, he is still a net leader in terms of the chase. So he would close his gap to Mr. Lewis and overtake in that battle, that 5th place position for a spot at the Championship 5 in Abu Dhabi in December. So that's important to note. That's all Ben Shaw will really care about as we see more pit stops. This time for Arnold and Kieran. Pete Knighton up to 4th, yet to stop.
Tony wins the first stage, of course, and he will continue on probably to pit this lap, I would have assumed. Casper is heading through. He's got Corey behind him. Arnold is on softs now. He's gone in between Kieran and Ben, and Jake is taking his drive-through penalty. Of all tracks to get one, this is the one you'd want. It is the shortest pit lane of the season. Not that that is going to help him too much, but he's come out in only 12th, so it could be worse. As we now see Casper pick up a penalty as well. So the leading ERT boys have penalties. Tony's going to have to pit though, and so they will end up leading the race. Michel Goris has ended up off at turn 2. But only lost a little bit of his front wing, so we're not going to see another VSC or indeed full safety car. Tony, he does continue, which is interesting. I'm curious about this because I don't really know why you'd want to continue. I suppose wait for a safety car, maybe, and maybe that's what Pete's going to do as well. That's just, I suppose, wait for a safety car. As the ERT boys side by side into turn 1, Corey, he gets it done. on Casper, so there you go. They do pass into turn 1 without having accidents. But the thing is, I would love to know what happened between the 3 ART drivers in that pit lane entry. We saw a massive pile up there in Season 3, where people who wanted to pit were going in, but people who didn't want to pit were caught on the outside, and issues happened there. Maybe this is something similar. Maybe someone's tried to turn out of pitting and they've hit Arnoud. Either way, it's a potentially controversial incident, once again involving Arnoud, which last week caused so many arguments. So I dread to think what they'll think of this one today.
He loves the drama, doesn't he, does Arnoud, as we look at the back of Casper here, who'll be looking to get past Corey. You'd like to think the ELT boys would be a bit more orchestrated than what they were. Certainly not having one of their finer races. And by the way, with the exception of Pete Knighton, once you take him out of the equation, Ben Shaw's back to net P6, which is exactly where we expected him to be, even with the wing change, because Nick Egan is only P10, so he's way down the road. But Casper has made no inroads on Corey this time around. Tony still leading.
That's why Tony stayed out.
Nice and wet, as Casper has a slide on the exit of turn 2.
Now, what's important here is that, yes, Tony stayed out, and yes, Leslie, Baza, and Pete stayed out, but of course, everyone else has made one mandatory stop. Now, can you get a new set of intermediates from, let's say, lap 15 to the end of the race? Because I think they'll pit this lap. It does tend to get pretty wet here pretty quickly, but it might be a lap or two, as Casper gets past Corey, he had a slide out of the chicane. Can you get a set of enters to the end of the race from here? That is the main question. If you can, brilliant. If you can't, then Tony may well still be on the right strategy. But let's see if he decides to pit. And I was saying it looked like it was clearing up as well. I thought a little bit of sunlight was coming through, but clearly it clouded over again. We got a bit distracted by all the Arnoud mess, didn't we? That's why Arnoud's on the softs, by the way. That makes sense now. Pete might have lost a bit of time there, hasn't he? He's been overtaken by Kieran, and now he's falling quickly. So will he possibly, I say risk a pit? Yeah, well, it is a bit of a risk to pit. Because if you pit now and it's raw, then you put 10% of wear onto the tyres you didn't need to. So I think you need to stay out.
Strategy as Tony as well, don't forget. So
yeah.
Pete's actually in for a genuine position here, assuming everybody else makes a pit stop for inters before lap 26, that is.
Now, I would have expected tires. Maybe it's just a pad thing, but I find that if you're on a changeable condition track, you're going to ruin your rear tyres. And you know, the less way you've gotten them, the better for this particular situation, because it gives you, of course, more margin for error. Risky's lost a bit of his front wing. That might be from earlier, but he did cause a yellow just now. He's sitting in P16. He's normally quite quick around here, so he's certainly fallen back down to earth, hasn't he, after last week? But I do think we're going to start seeing pit stops now. MK Bourne said he's taking a 10-second penalty, but after that, you can see it. It's green marked intermediates. Now, yellow flags for Yori this time. He loses a bit of his front wing as well, so they are starting to fall off the road here, Jacko, and Tony has decided to pit this lap.
Yep, he sure has, and I'm going to say something now which might make the race very interesting. We still have 20 runners.
I know, it's maybe a bit early to say that. I know we tend to leave that to the dramatic conclusion. Here, how about this super dramatic? So we've got everyone pitting at the front, bar Casper at the minute. The game hasn't said DRS disabled, I don't think. So, by that logic, it would mean it's correct to stay out, which is what Ben Shaw is also doing. Of course, in these conditions, someone puts it in the wall, you get a safety car, and you were out there, you've already made your first stop, you can make your second stop mandatory safety car. Happy days. But that doesn't always work out that way. Tony's come out in front, and Corey in front of Ben Shaw, so him staying out might not have been the right decision. And you can see DRS disabled, the track is too wet now.
Look at the back end of Ben Shaw, all over the place. Kieran with an easy move here for what is a genuine P4. I'd go on board with Ben Shaw though, he's all over the road, really struggling to keep that car between the white lines and anywhere near them for that matter.
Casper's got through the hairpins, so he will get to the pits here, so that's good for him. Ben Shaw, most likely to put a safety car out here if he gets this too wrong. And he's giving it a good go here, getting around. It is so difficult, these conditions. Like, you wouldn't believe it if you're watching it, how difficult this is. And he's doing well to get back, but he's lost 10 seconds on this lap. And, well, A bad race is getting worse, unfortunately, for the man. He stuck it in the wall earlier on in the dry conditions, and it's gotten worse in the wet. Tony leads this race by how much? 7 seconds? 8, 9, something like that. Luckily, the game's not giving me a gap, so I can't. 7 seconds, there you go. So he's leading by 7 seconds. Casper, despite his struggles on this in-lap, is still going to come out in a podium position. Penalty notwithstanding, of course, he would possibly fall behind Kieran if he can catch up by a second or two. But that's for a lot later in the race. We still have 20 laps to go here. And
I think, Nick is going to beat Ben out as well, by the way. So that's another position lost for the Season 8 champion.
Keep an eye on
course,
Jake
Nick's
as well.
Had a lap experience on these tyres, yep. Jake through and all. And what about Leroy? He's not going to quite do it. But Ben right behind Jake O'Sullivan, again, with a one lap experience on these tyres. Everybody now, all 20 of them, on the intermediates. And Tony leads by 7 seconds.
Leroy is out there still. He's in P10. Reason I'm mentioning him is, of course, he needs to finish top 5 really to have any hope of breaking himself back into playoff contention. And he's on his way. If he gets a safety car, it might well help him out. We do say this every time it rains, and it never actually comes to pass. But if this gets any heavier. There's a long up in the race now to consider it. Wet tyres could be required later on in this race, so do just remember that's an option for Tony and for Pete for their second stops, for instance. I'll see the rest of the guys out there. I mean, Corey, for instance, he actually is the net race leader by virtue of the fact that his pit stops are completed. If it stays wet, he has to basically hope that Tony, I don't know, just isn't fast on his next set of inters, I suppose. Or is it a set of wets? But either way, it's worth thinking about. It could make this a very pedestrian race, but as Jacko said, with 20 cars still in it, that doesn't happen very often, and it won't last. Probably.
Oh no, you know it won't. Look at the state of some of these drivers, the way they're
Casper's he's ignoring track limits there in the P9 chicane. He's you're going to swallow up a lot of penalties on this game. It's not quite as bad as the olden days where people used to get disqualified around here for their penalty accumulation, but they might not get far off it because this is difficult conditions at the moment. Sadly, there's no real battles going on track, really. I think everyone's more just focusing on the conditions. The closest fight is Yuri versus Matt Lester. Now, Yuri is riding around now with front wing damage, but that doesn't seem to be slowing him down too much, does it? He's looking at the move and just riding on board. The rain is sort of stable, actually, isn't it, at this inter level? I think you'll notice when it gets to full wet, if it does happen.
Yeah, certainly. It's I hate to say it, it's killed the race a little bit, the weather. But not only that, the ERT pit lane crash, the Ben Shaw spin.
Oh, do you know what I've just remembered?
What?
I'm all about everyone making their second stops. We're nowhere near the second stage. No. So everyone does have one more stop to go, yeah. That's a shame, isn't it? That makes it even worse. I
wonder why you called Corey the net race leader.
It's because I'm sitting there thinking they made their second stops, and it doesn't matter if they can make interest go to the end. No one can do it, and there's no jokers out there. I was saying about earlier on how bad a track this is for a joker. Actually, it would have been perfect today. But, so sorry, they do all have to pit it another time. So that does mean that Corey has to get a move on if he wants to win this race. That is my bad. We actually got until lap 26. Or lap 20, stage 2, lap 26, pits up in lap 27. That's what you've got to be looking at. What will the conditions be like by then? I suppose we'll have to wait and find out.
Yep. Second stops, lap 27 and beyond. Playoff point, lap 26. It's probably, at this rate, going to go to Tony Kirkpatrick. I'm trying to jinx a safety car into play like we've done before. Well, there's a penalty. That's part of the way there.
You can tell he's pushing.
Half the field. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Giving our race leaders some time on the telly. But into the chicanes, they are certainly... It's always too dangerous to crawl into the corners because you will just clumsily slide into an accident if you do that. So they do have to send it. We saw Casper was doing it as well with his cutting of corners. see how they get on this time through the P9. And Corey's got a penalty through there this time round. So yeah, the penalties will keep coming. And yeah, I think we'll go back to Yuri. Really, he's the only one trying to give us some racing here. So we'll give him something to do. We did mention the playoff championship quite a lot, but it is worth pointing out that if the race finishes like this, it would be Ben Shaw retaking the lead in the chase. He's only 3 points behind Sullivan Lewis, who's of course our chase leader, virtue of his win last week, but Ben P9, that'll be enough to make the 3-point gap up. If Pete can stay P6, he's currently 22 points off, so it will slightly close him in, but you would have thought it's between Sullivan and Ben Shaw for the chase, and even then, it's basically just between Ben and his own bottle, really.
Here's a fact for you, or a stat. It is the first time that the lead of the chase has swapped leaders in 3 consecutive races. We've never had that before.
And look at that, Ben rubbing along the wall there at the final corner. That's worth pointing out because that will wear your tyres. If you're rubbing the walls, that will do damage and it can cause punctures. There's quite a lot of walls around here in the wet, and people, they will tend to use them for comfort. In upper league races, you can obviously do that, but on simulation damage, it will wear your tyres out. So it's yeah, just something to keep an eye on. I'd be very surprised if someone runs along a wall hard enough to puncture, but if you do it 10 different times, that will be 2, 3, 4% damage every time, and that will build up. So that is something to keep an eye on. I'm just looking at Jacob Sullivan, by the way. I was wondering perhaps if his struggles with pace were to do with being on a wet setup, but he's ahead of Pete Knight now. He's chasing Pete Knight. He's ahead of Nick. But he is just miles off, isn't he, unfortunately? And Michel Goris has gone to the full wets, so bit of an early point to get that crossover as MK Bourne reverses out of the wall. Still has a front wing on the car. VSC deployed. But yeah, full wet then. I don't know, I feel like I could still run inters in this, but I'd certainly have waited till lap 27 to go on to the wets, unless it just becomes purely undrivable. Perhaps we're at that stage. We'll see if anyone wants to pit. In fairness, actually, looking at it on board, I mean, you can see why they'd go to wets, but I suppose it depends how long the cell lasts.
I would say, Owen.
It just depends on how long the cell lasts. Into the pits comes Baza as well. The problem with these is that they're non-mandatories, so they're not really relevant. You know what I mean? I'd rather lose the 15 seconds of pace over 7 laps on the inters than I would making a pointless pit stop. And I'm going to have to make another one anyway, aren't I? Unless it goes back down to inters level, which means those wet stops are even more pointless. Tony keeps on going, which I think is the right thing to do as we go back to green. It is getting mistier out there as well. I mean, if you get to the point where you can no longer see turn 1 before you get there, then you can start thinking about it. Very rarely have we seen monsoon conditions. They are still
words out of my mouth.
They are still in the game, I assure you, but they are random. Oh, Tony! Oh, my goodness me! What a moment then. And, well, I was saying, maybe you should pit for wets, actually, if that's the race leader struggling. Although he did seem to dip a wheel to the grass on the way in there, but my goodness, he'll have had a heart attack on the way through. But, yeah, if we get to monsoon conditions, you'll know, because you won't be able to see the corner ahead of you.
That's what we want, isn't it?
I think we've the only time we've ever seen monsoon conditions is when we've done it on purpose and they just happened to show up for a lap or two. It's conditions so wet it would put a safety car out. It happened in a one-hub charity. No, it was a PSGL Champions race, I think. I remember being in it. It was around Hockenheim. It was either PSGL or one-hub, but it happened and it was too wet. You couldn't see ahead of you, and they did put a safety car out. So yeah, it could happen. It's rare enough to see us on full wets, in all honesty. But yes, will Tony pit this lap, or does he fancy continuing? Because my goodness, what an adventure that lap was. He will continue, and he slides his way through into the wall of championship chicane like nothing happened on the last lap.
Yeah, it's been pushing through those corners as well. I can't. Sorry, I forgot what I was going to say. Must be close to another penalty by now, as he follows the car's line in front, which is not ideal. What does he do this time around? He gets past him. No mistakes into T3. No mistakes out of T4, so Tony well on his way. Remember, they can pit from lap 27, the mandatories. But the gap over the last lap has decreased again. So Corey got it down to 4.2. It's now dropped another 6/10 since then. So maybe Tony just trying to regain some confidence as Corey finds another 10th this time.
Oh, big contact then! And that's into the wall, and that's going to be a safety car. The whole front wind's off that car for MK Bourne. Surely, Codemasters, you're going to put a safety car out for that. It's horrendously dangerous. I don't know who that was who was lapping him, but he was being lapped. They've not got a safety car. MK Bourne will be livid, but he was being lapped. He got hit while he was being lapped. Let me try and figure out who that might have been. It was Arnold. It was, of course, it was Arnold. It was Arnold who was lapping him, and they've had contact, and into the wall went MK Bourne. Oh dear! And I tell you what, Arnold, he sticks it in the wall himself. This is getting very difficult, but it's drivable on inters. I'm still going to stick by that. It's drivable on inters. Maybe, yeah, it's drivable. I'm sticking by it. It looks pretty bad, the conditions, but it looks drivable at the same time because no one's actually put it in the wall all by themselves in a big enough way to cause serious damage, as much as Tony has tried. And is still trying.
Sideways, an MK Bourne is out. Here
it's in the wall. That's in the wall this time. He's really tried to keep going in the full wet conditions on inters with no front wing, and he's put it in the wall. What a shock. Now, this safety car will not take us, will it, till lap 27? It will take us lap 26, and then it will go in. So this doesn't really help. All it does is close. It helps us fantastically, because it closes the pack up. But people are going to pit anyway. I suppose, since there's some field spread, you can actually get away with it. If you're Arnold, for instance, you can actually get away with it. 30 seconds between him and Ben Shaw. Okay, they probably will all pit then here and just take non-mandatories. Hopefully, the theory is, the whole field will be packed together. But, yeah, this is the... It's, even on Singapore, it never gets this wet. And yeah, most of the field now out there on the full wets. That must suggest that this rain they think is going to last further into the race than this, because they would just hold on, wouldn't they? Oh my god, Matt.
Corey stays out. That
was dreadful, that. What a way to get a 3-second time penalty and a 10-second time penalty at the same time. He got it all wrong on the way out of the pits, and he just ends up in the grass. Now, ERT stay out. Tony, yeah, so he's taking the pit stop, but he's gone for inters. That would suggest the rain's going to stop soon. But then at the same time, he's going to have to pit in lap 27 anyway, so he wants some fresh inters for the restart. If you were going to pit, why pit for them? Maybe you only get one set of wets. I don't know, actually. That's a good point I might have just made. I don't know how many sets of wets you have.
That's a very good point, actually. I'm just definitely one.
People, well, I hope it's 2 for their city. You would certainly get more than one set of intermediates, but the wets, you never use the wets. As Ben, drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car. And you know what? I wouldn't at all be surprised if that's a bug, because that's happened on the way into the pits. I think that might have been what happened to Jake earlier, coming into the pits, and it just gives you a drive-through for the sake of it. I mean,
and
what are you going to do?
By the way, Owen, look at Leroy, who's crept his way up to P6.
He's doing the right thing, I think. He's got to finish in the top 5, or well, he said 6 or 5, didn't he? I mean, but still, he's got to. If you finish in the top 5, you're good, you know. But
6th is not enough. He'd be level on points, but would fall out due to countback.
It has to be said, actually. It has to be said. We're on lap 25. There's a potential for the safety car to come in at the end of the next lap. Only the top 5 are in the train. Leroy's a long way behind here. I didn't realise the field spread was this bad, if I'm honest. But
it was awful.
I knew it was bad, but not this bad. Oh no, Pete! What was the point of that? He's creamed into the back of Leroy on his new wets. He's damaged the front wing. I can't believe they've not given him a 5-second penalty for it as well. Thank goodness for that, because that would have just been even worse. Arnold has pitted for the wets, he's noticed the field spread. He's going to get some wets for the restart. Again, do you get only one set of wets? Is this a mistake he's making? Because the stage will be handed out at the end of this lap. I mean, drivers could follow the safety car in, couldn't they, at the end of the lap? There's actually nothing stopping that anymore, is there?
Yeah. It's if you follow the safety car in, it's non-mandatory.
We could see... Oh, it's a non-mandatory, even if it's at the end of...
Non-mandatory, yeah.
Okay,
you
so...
cannot follow the safety car in.
Okay, that's what I want to check then.
But it's not legal, yeah.
So that means they will have to take the restart regardless. So for the sake of this race, I hope this safety car stays at one more lap. Because I do not want a 5-car restart in this situation, please. At least give us 10 cars, you know. And, come on, lads, catch up. As I'm on board with Gareth, and in fairness, it looks impossible. It does look impossible. I mean, high, unfortunately. Hopefully co-masters have some sense here. Whatever happened to red flags, actually? That would have been really handy here, wouldn't it?
Cup Series has only ever seen 3 red flags for a total of 6 laps. Every other lap we've ever had has been under green or yellow conditions. I'm
starting to get a bit excited here. Are co-masters listening to my prayers here? Are we going to get one extra lap of safety car to let the field catch up? Thank goodness for that. I say that. I mean, Yuri's only just about at the end of the first sector. It's still a long shot to catch up, but it's giving them a chance. It is giving them a chance in impossible conditions. So this is under dries. There'd be no worries, but this is just a nightmare. Corey has got the stage point. That is in the bag, and they will not be able to take their second mandatory stops at the end of this lap, even though if it was under greens you would be. Or if this wasn't a safety car restart lap, you would be. This is the only situation ever where this could not be a mandatory stop. So it'll be lap 28 onwards for pit stops. So that means they can focus on the restart. They'll all have to come in. It's just what they go on to. Do the guys who've gone onto wets have a second set of wets? Is the rain going to stop at any point? Is it going to at least lighten up? Because this is very heavy conditions at the moment. And most importantly, who's actually driven on the wets on this game? I mean, it's going to be possibly a trip into the complete unknown here, which is exactly what you need if you're Leroy Hasselager, who might well just be able to benefit from it. If he gains one more place,
win the race.
He could do with it. He really could do with it. If he can get one or two more place, just one more place, he's in. He's into the next round, and he'd be displacing Ben Harrett. Safety car is in this lap. I'm just going to quickly check penalties. 3 seconds of penalties for Leroy. Only 3 seconds. That's not too bad. Race leader Corey has 6, for instance. But well, we're slowing it right down.
Yeah.
If anything, it looks like it's getting darker out there. Do you not think?
Yeah, I do think. I was just going to say Gareth, Jamie and Sullivan should catch up to this. I do feel sorry for the likes of Lestino, KK. I don't think they're going to quite make it.
I tell you what, the Corey's
Delta.
Corey's giving a very good chance to the rest here to catch up. Unfortunately, people are hitting each other, as you can see with penalties, but we're going to ignore that. Michelle's a minute and a half behind the field.
Gareth is there.
I think, do you know what? The whole field's going to get there. I must say, well done and thank you to Corey Dalton, because he's given some of the drivers out here a massive lifeline. But his tyres are going to be frozen solid for this restart, Jacko.
I think they all are. I'm going to let you talk us through this restart. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it, because I think this is going to be something very special. By the way, before I do leave you, mandatory pit stops can now take place from the next lap onwards. Right, the field's already starting to spread out here. People are sort of falling asleep behind the wheel here. That's not how you meant to do this, people. Hitters.
Corey's gone.
Michelle.
Okay, you'll need to write those down. Corey's a second ahead already. The whole rest of the field's fallen asleep on the restart. Into turn 1. Look at that from Arnold. He's going to go round the outside of 2 cars in one go there. That's the power of those wet compound tyres. He may well get Casper as well. And Arnold, who, was in the pit wall not too long ago, he could actually cycle to the front here. This is a brilliant restart. He's away, and this condition, you can see nothing in front of you, and it's incredibly difficult to drive. Everyone who's doing this on intermediates, absolute respect at this point, because it's very, very difficult. Now, a problem that will crop up here is stacking, because surely the whole field's going to pit. someone's going to stack with someone, and it's not going to work out. As Gareth passes Leroy. Leroy's had a dreadful restart on those intermediates. He's got the guys on wets passing him, but Gareth's nearly put it in the wall, so he's not finding it too easy himself to get through. And as they head towards the hairpin, anyone making any rash moves, there's a bit of movement as Jake gets past Pete Knighton, but this is now going to be a race into the pits. It's almost night time here, but look at Kieran. He fancies a move on Tony. That's a fight towards the pit lane, and he's going to get through. Surely, pit stops are going to happen. Oh, look at the locking up. It's a move again from Kieran. He ends up just having to sit behind. Arnold stayed out on the wets. Pete also stayed out on the wets. Will this work out? It avoids any chance of stacking, but they would have been the lead cars in anyway, in fairness. I'm trying to look for some stackers. It's hard to tell, really, isn't it? Who has to and who doesn't. They might have got away with it, you know. Enough of them may have not pitted for it to work out. And yellow flags now. I'll tell you what, anything going wrong here now would be a disaster. It's Gareth off as well. He's really not enjoying those wet compound tyres. The only one still on inters now is Baza in 7th. He's got half the front wing on his car. But people are still having to pit. There's quite a few. Everyone from 1st to 9th, and they'll get a VSC to do it. And that means Pete Knighton, he gets to cycle up to 2nd place here. Well, I say that, actually. The pit lane is so short, he might not get anything. But who's that really going to benefit? It's hard to tell. We'll wait and find out. Let's just wait and find out. Penalties will do more damage than a VSC at this point. But, yeah, I tell you what, though, if that was a full safety car, boy, we were going to be in for some finish. But luckily for half of these guys, they stayed in VSC. But look at this helicopter shot that you've got here. It's just apocalyptic conditions here. Fair play to the crowd for sticking through this, because this is just... It's mental. How can you race in this? We've still got 19 cars in the field. Like, how can you even race like this? Arnold
now needs to slow down.
He has. He's made it into the pits. I would pretty much give him the win right now, but let's see if he has another set of wets. That's what I'm really interested in here. He does. And Lesty's got a drive through for speeding. P. Knighton leads the race. He's going to get a point for it. We've gone back to green. Fair play. I just hope he knows his rules. He should know the rules. He's the only driver out there. Him and Baza are the only 2 drivers then and Ben Shaw. 3 drivers still have to pit then, I think is what that means.
And Waze and Michelle.
Yeah, we're going to ignore them. They're basically the back. And the big hitters, really, is what we're worried about. Arnold leads this race. Corey and Casper would, be done by Kieran on penalties. Kieran could cycle way up the field here because of this. One more safety car, again, I'll keep saying it, could really shake that up for people with penalties. Leroy's sadly down in 15th. He's going to need quite a dramatic last few laps here to make things happen for his playoff campaign, his last ever playoff campaign. Here comes Ben Shaw on Baza. Once again, the helicopter shot showing how difficult this is, but he's made it stick up into 3rd place on the road, and Corey's going to follow him through. Tremendous drive in this. Pete Knighton, is he going to stick it out, wait for a safety car? He can obviously do a safety car pit stop. No one's done any safety car pit stops in this race. That would count as mandatory, so maybe Pete's going to stick around and hope for the best in that case. Look at this down the back straight. I know. Perhaps we should do more podcasts. It seems to spur the drivers on a little bit as Kieran looks at the back of Casper, gets a good switch back on him, but just can't make it work on the exit. He hasn't got the grip in the tyres, didn't have the space on the track. Oh no! Arnold's disconnected from the session.
No.
Oh, he's got time. He's got about 8 seconds on his ERT teammate, and then another 6 seconds on top of that. But I don't think anyone's ever won a race while not actually being in the race before. He's back now. He's back now, but oh my goodness, that's a minor heart attack there for him. It does happen often, unfortunately. It does happen often to him, but he's back is the important point. Look at this on board. Every time they go on board with someone, they're in the middle of an accident and they somehow don't make it to the wall. It's remarkable. As Corey heads through, following Ben Shaw very closely indeed. I'd say we've got maybe 2 more laps before a safety car becomes an impossibility. So that's the deadline really for these guys who are yet to make their second mandatory stops. Side by side, we've got Casper and Kieran, with Tony just watching behind, waiting to pounce on any mistakes, any contact. And I think he'll just sit behind for a little bit longer. Pete Knighton, he continues on for another lap. Lap 32 coming up now. I really do hope he knows the rules. It'd be really embarrassing if tonight of all nights he gets it wrong and thinks he's actually won his race.
I'm just going to check because you never know. He might have done it right. I don't think he has.
8 lap old wet. I mean, I can't see how he would have done that right.
No.
Unfortunately.
It's got to be a glory run for Pete. Stat padding, he's now up to 225 laps led all time in the Cup Series. Oh, big moment for Tony, and he saves it just about the same place where Ben Shaw lost it in the dry.
Oh! Fed into the wall! Surely that's a safety car. It is! It's a safety car! It is Jake and Risky who've put themselves in the wall. And that's, well, straight into the pits, my son. Surely you're into the pits, Pete Knighton. And Ben Shaw. Ben Shaw, well, you know what? Ben will come out.
Yeah.
Baza, there's a 10-second gap between Baza and Tony. So Ben, he can pit here. And he might have a real chance to make something happen. It'll be a very short safety car. It might last this lap, the next lap, possibly
Pete.
lap 34 if you're lucky.
Pete cannot get this wrong.
You can break the delta a little bit. You can push it a little bit,
No!
but not that much. Not that much, Pete.
Oh.
What a knobhead. I actually was deliberately not watching him, hoping he wouldn't get it wrong, and he did. Let's see where he would have come out. Oh, Jacko, look where he's going to come out. Oh my god, he would have been second. Well, maybe third. Oh, Pete. He's second. He's second.
In the Knighton camp.
He's literal second. Penalties, in fairness, but second place. Oh. Wow. That's all you can say to it, really, isn't it? Just wow.
We had a great chat the other night, and it was posted today. Pete Knighton, he said he was trying to hold off on doing the podcast until he got another win. Were we just 2 days away from it? Apparently not with that penalty. What utter heartbreak for Pete Knighton at Canada as well, of all places.
He's found a new chicane to mess up.
Something else in it.
He's found a new chicane to mess up.
Yeah.
The thing is,
heartbreaking.
The thing is, I'd almost be certain it's not even his fault. Because the game does muck about with these penalties. It does on that pit entry. So many have got it wrong, and I guarantee the Delta is just going to have spiked at the wrong time. But he had a chance just to slow down by another second or two, and risk that not happening. He can still take the lead on track, but the game's going to disqualify him. There's no way we can remove the penalty off him. So he's going to have to take the penalty. He'll fall down possibly to what? I don't know. 12, something like that.
He can follow the safety car in.
Yes. Safety car is in, so we will see a 2-lap race to the end. Arnaud is a
checker.
Arnaud's it is actually, yeah. We rarely see those in JACKOCAR, but it looks like Arnaud's won the race basically, unless he puts it in the wall from here. Maybe Pete will give him a helping hand. We'll keep penalties on screen because everyone's on wets. I'd rather just have penalties on screen. Waste speeding in the pit lane. Look at this. A lot of movement on the restart and a car in the wall as well. But Pete, side by side here with Corey and towards turn 1. There's big contact. Corey's nearly gone round. Pete's not going to go down without a fight here. Oh, look at that. A big slide on the exit. Like I say, Arnaud, he's pretty much home free here to win this race. As side by side, now Pete loses that second place on track. I'm sure he'll race it as realistically as he can, just to see where he might have ended up. But, well, you know he'll be angry. You know he'll be proper angry as Jamie gets half spun round. Leroy's still falling down the pack, sadly. He's lingering only in P16, 15, fighting there with Baza. It's not going to happen for him this season in the playoffs. He's about to be eliminated along with Jordan Lane. who's actually already gone because he's obviously not here. So that's good news as well for Gareth because he's done a 17th. He's having a shocker himself as Tony gets shuffled off wide there by Casper and Kieran. Kieran's in a weird position because he's pretty much guaranteed to finish second. I must say as well, you could have probably put Inters on, really, couldn't you, when you pitted that second time, Pete and Ben and the rest. Maybe that's something I'll regret as Pete does come in.
Yeah. Well, Owen, you'll never guess what. It's 1 lap to go in Canada. Arnold leads, and he's chasing a 14th victory in the Cup Series. He is unchallenged at the front. Corey Dalton with 6 seconds of penalties. Casper and Tony fighting out for 3rd and 4th, both with 3 seconds. Kieran now 4th with no penalties. And of course, Ben Shaw may benefit with no penalties down in P7. Yuri is P6. But I really don't see anybody else other than the Belgian finding his way to victory lane here in North America.
What a fight this is. 3 wide into the 6-7 chicane, and Yuri's being manhandled here. He's got to put Jake into the wall. Here comes a big essay from him after that one. But a bit more side-by-side coming up as well. We've got Kieran, who's already guaranteed to be on the podium as long as he doesn't go and stick it in the wall. He's got no penalties. Don't need to fight this one so hard, mate. You'll be absolutely fine. As Corey does catch up to Arnaud, but I don't think they're going to do anything stupid, are they? Nothing like what these two are doing in the fight for third. As Tony now fancy sneaking his way back through. There are yellow flags now happening now, and there's all sorts of mucking about happening in the midfield. As Corey, he closes right up to Arnaud, but it looks to me like Arnaud's just going to ease it home. It's a win that looked unlikely when he found himself in the attenuator wall. But Arnaud, once again, wins here in Canada, and it's 3 wide out of the final corner. Corey's second. He may have made the gap. Let's see. He does stay second. Kieran goes to third. Ben 4th. And then it's Casper. Gareth! Tony and then Gareth! And I tell you what, Pete didn't even serve his drive-through, so it just gets worse for him. But Gareth ends up 7th. Yuri in 8th. Nick 9th. Jamie Griffiths in 10th. Leroy 11th. Risky. Matt Lester, Baza, Jake OKK, who's dead, Pete, Michel Goris, and then Wace has a puncture on the front left. He'll take quite a while to get to the line. He's got 22 seconds of penalties anyway. But, yeah, where the hell did Gareth come from? And it's worth saying, Corey closing up to Arnaud, it was right to do that because he ended up on the podium. He ended up second by just over 2 tenths, and Ben Shaw was just behind Kieran as well, so could easily have been 4th bet for Corey. But it is Arnaud who wins once again here in Canada.
Yep, 14 victories now in the Cup Series. He is very much one of the big names when it comes to that sort of thing. He goes ahead of Ben Shaw and moves to 5th all-time. 1 behind Jake O'Sullivan, 4 behind all-time race wins leader Jamie Wright. It's a big win for Arnaud. He does advance to the next round. He didn't need to win, but it's a good handful of points. Big day for Corey as well, and Kieran and Ben Shaw in the chase. Sullivan Lewis all the way down in, well, I think it was P12, but it took his name away before I could read it. Fascinating race. Would you say that was monsoon or not quite?
I think it was not quite. It was close. It was definitely the heaviest we've seen all season, but I wouldn't go as... maybe it was. I need to look it up, to be honest. I can't name you any other time it's as heavy as that. But, it was, yeah, do you know what? Forget it. We'll call it monsoon, purely for the thumbnail. And all the rest of it, of course. But here is Arnaud. It's dried up now. It's brightened up. He's got his winner's trophy on the podium. And we're going to stop watching that now because no one really cares, do they? He gets the fastest lap as well. He's just taking off for spoils. You forget. I would love to know, let's say, how he ended up in a pit wall. But it doesn't matter. He won the race. From Corey, Kieran, Ben Shaw, Casper, Tony, Gareth. He had no penalties, and that's why it's important because he jumped up about 8 places on the line. Yuri, Nick, Jamie Griffiths, who disconnected and all. He had accidents and all sorts. Leroy 11th, Risky, Lesty, Baza, Jake, who was in the wall right at the end, OKK, Pete, who's just been nuked by penalties at the end, Michelle, and Wace. Our only retirement was NK Bourne, who tried to hit the final chicane with no front wing in the wrong conditions on the wrong tyre. Not very smart.
Yep. Thank you very much, Owen Wyatt. That was a fantastic job as always. A brilliant race in Canada. We said to Gareth earlier, it is a good track. We do have good races here, and he is finally experienced one, and I think he'll be happy with a P7. But we stay in North America for the next 3 weeks. It is, of course, Miami, Austin, and Las Vegas, which will be the round of 8. And Jordan Lane and Leroy Haselager will not be there. They are the first 2 eliminated from this Season 10 playoffs.
And on that note, I think we can pretty much call it there for Canada. It's certainly been the most bizarre race of the season, purely just for the weather alone. But I think there's a lot of drivers who'll come out of that race relatively surprised that they've all survived. 19 finishers in a race like that, unbelievable. But yes, we like to say we'll stay in North America for the next 3 rounds. So do join us then. We will cross over to, oddly enough, a round 18, and we'll be nowhere near the championship being decided yet. It's exciting times in the JACKOCAR Cup Series. Do indeed join us for what will be round 16 next week, but you know what I mean. Round of 8 will end on round 18, which just doesn't make sense to anyone. So thank you for watching. We'll be back next week, and yeah, enjoy your week, and look out for Luton versus Burnley on the channel. It was very exciting, and it was very entertaining and funny as well. And Tom Lockyer played, and he shouldn't really be playing, should he? So yeah, look out for him. Thank you very much for watching.